Well, jeepers! You're listening to Smash or Pass.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another interview on the JayBee and Milly channel. I am JayBee, and of course, with me is Milly.
Hi.
And we have two very special guests on this episode. We have Chris Bailey
Hello.
and Mike Milo.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, so it's incredible to have you both here today to talk a lot of things, notably about Scooby Doo and Guess Who, which we're really excited to discuss today. It's going to be a lot of fun, and so it's amazing to continue on this trend of these double interviews, which is absolutely incredible. And so, in order to kick us off with the topic of Scooby Doo and Guess Who, and all of that, I'll ask a question to both of you, please. How did you both come to work on Scooby Doo and Guess Who?
Well, Chris goes first for that because he hired me.
Oh, I know. You've got the easy answer.
Yeah.
Well, I was doing some development for our executive Jay Bastian at Warner Brothers, and the project I was on, it hit a snag, and it just looked like it wasn't going to go forward, even though we had a great script and we loved the art. And then he said, "What do you think about Scooby?" And it really kind of took me aback. It was like as far afield from what we were developing as possible. And I said, "You mean a series?" He was like, "Yeah." I said, "I don't know." I said, "I loved Scooby as a kid. I watched it the first couple of years. And then I kind of moved on to more, more adolescent horror and sci-fi and things like that. But I've never really thought about it." And I said, "But I'm not saying no. Let me think about it. What do you want to do with it?" And he says, "Well, we want to go back to kind of original designs, do something." And then what was very funny is he said, "The gold standard of what we're looking for, the mark is runaway brain." I'm thinking, my runaway brain? Is there another runaway brain? And he registered like my thought process. And he says, the Mickey Mouse cartoon, where he was, switch brains with a monster. I took another beat and I said, "That's my cartoon, right?" He was like, "What?" "Yeah, I directed that and developed it." And he's like, "I had no idea." And he was like, he laughed. So
that's funny that he didn't know.
I know, right? So he said, we're looking for something that's old, or new, but looks old, but just has a new sensibility. And I said, "Okay, great. Let me think about it." And then I came back and I pitched, let's do a modern version of the Scooby Doo movies. And my first pitch was just doing cartoon guest stars, no celebrity guest stars or human guest stars. And then it slowly morphed into 50-50, and then, studio loves human guest stars and celebrities and people like that. So it became more, I don't know, I never did a final count, but it's probably like 75-25 or 60-40, something like that. That was it. And then I developed it for a few weeks and then pitched, we had a writer come in and do a couple pitch episodes. This was actually before Mike Ryan, just to pitch the concept. And then they said, "Go." Then I said, hey, Mike. I think we met like previously on the sidewalk at Warner Brothers, like a couple months earlier in person for the first time. And I was like, "You like Scooby Doo? You're an H&B guy. What do you think?"
Yeah. Actually, we'd met before that. We met at Renegade. And I don't know, you were going to be an animation supervisor on something that they were planning. Maybe it was Tom and Jerry. And you came in, and Daryl Van Sitters, who owns the place with Ashley Postlewaite, he asked me to go to the meeting with you because I understood the technology of Harmony, which is what they wanted to use at that time. And then we were deciding whether or not it was going to be Adobe Flash, whether it was going to be Harmony or traditional or whatever. And I remember meeting you in this big conference room, and we were just going back and forth and talking about technology and how to make this stuff digitally. And it was a fun time. But we kind of had a rapport there. And then when I heard that you were hiring for it, it was just kind of like an easy thing. Came right in. I kind of felt like we already knew each other. It seemed like it went well and got the job. So I guess it did go well.
I mean, something
But
that's really interesting to hear in the middle of that as well is that you both like Scooby. Chris, I know you were saying you watched it growing up, and you did also mention that Mike was a fan. So what was your experience like with Scooby before this point? Was there a certain series or era of Scooby you were enjoying, or, you know, a particular character or anything?
Well, you know, forgive me for going first, but you know, not really. I mean, I loved it when I was a kid, and I loved like the whole, you know, the science fiction horror aspect of it, because I love sci-fi and I love horror. And then the relationship of the characters, I think, was just great, you know. But I don't know. I mean, everybody loves Scooby. I did when I got the job. I went back and I looked at some of the recent things they had done, like Mystery Inc. And I love Mystery Inc. You know, I know it was a little too scary for some people, and that they wanted to sort of, you know, go a little bit skew from that. But my first reaction was, why don't we just make more of those? But there was one aspect of that I loved, and they made Scooby so erudite, or maybe not erudite, that's the wrong word, but he's talked a lot. And I'm like, oh my God, that's hilarious, because they played on the joke that he could speak all these words, but he'd speak to a cop or somebody, and they'd be like, hey, something's wrong with your dog over here. You know, they were just hearing dog noises. And I thought that was funny. So you'll notice in the first few episodes, Scooby talked a lot. Then the studio said, hey, maybe just pull back just a little bit. So you see a little less of that as the series goes on. But that was it. It was just the average people in a, you know, encountering horror and sci-fi.
Yeah, we found it was hard to understand too many words of him. Like he couldn't recite Shakespeare or anything that made a difference. He wasn't going to give you who kidnapped who, because wait, what did he just say?
But
we
come on,
that
speech when he's going on and on about the man bat and hissy, ha,
yeah,
and all that stuff. Yeah. That stuff was genius.
Yeah, that was really nice, just because they managed to do it in a way that a talking dog might actually do it. You know, like it's a combination of roughs and
I think Scooby and I'm sure this was in the writing too, because Mike was like so into it. You know, that Scooby was not making fun of, but mimicking Shaggy and Velma. You know, no way, dude, and then my glasses.
Yeah, one of the things that I really enjoyed.
Start rambling.
No,
it's great.
One of the things I really enjoyed about the show was actually Mike Ryan's innocence, because if you ever met the man, he is just like a big boy. You know, he's just very excited and very happy. Hey, how you doing? Like he had a lot of energy, and it was always happy. He was always happy, and he's always like, you'd pitch him an idea for, I was thinking maybe we do this, or we, you know, because this line needs to change or whatever, and he would be like, oh, dude, I love that. That's genius. That was his thing. If you got the genius from Mike Ryan, you were golden.
I think Mike, you know, you guys, have you had him on by any chance?
Well, we've been speaking to him for a while. He said that last time we touched base with him, he was on his way to a convention, and to touch base with him afterwards. So yeah.
Right.
Well, you really should, because I have to say, while, you know, I devoured Scooby when I was little, you know, and I know it inside and out. You know, he was really like the soul of the show, and he confessed to me, because, you know, I love these characters more than any grown man should.
Yeah, he did too. He was very careful about their characters and making sure that we didn't change their personalities or add anything for the sake of comedy. You know, the characters were paramount and the most important part. Where I was perfectly fine having anything happen for a slapstick gag. But
me too. I mean, if you've seen Runaway Brain, you know, it's like, okay, that's what they did in the past. That's what I like about it. Now let's do this. You know, so nothing was really off the table for me. But yeah, he was a good guiding post for us.
Well, I do love all the scenes where Scooby is going on those like long tangents, especially that one that you were mentioning with the man bat, like, and then the man bat broke my phone is just such a cool, like, it's just such a funny line. And even now we're going through like a marathon, rewatching some of them, and we're on What a Night for a Dark Night. And when Batman first captures the gang and Scooby's there, like, oh, we're here to see Alfred, the Daphne's, butler twice removed. Like, it's just there's a lot of
Yeah.
quirk in those little moments there, which is just absolutely incredible.
Yeah, that was super funny. And I'm such a huge Batman fan. That was a really, fun one for me to do. When I was a kid, I was actually a little disappointed when Batman was on Scooby, because I probably wasn't old enough to read Batman comics, but I had them and I looked at the pictures and they were very serious. And I watched the Batman cartoons and they were, serious. And then so I was excited to see him on Scooby, but they changed his character and they younged him up a little bit. And I was a little disappointed. So what I wanted to do is classic Scooby, but I wanted like the real Batman to be in. And we got, Kevin Conroy to be the voice and all that. So I felt like I was righting a wrong that was wrong to me when I was 6 years old or whatever, by making Batman serious in Scooby Doo.
Yeah, you also added a lot of angles and dramatic shots. I mean, we were trying to do proscenium, but still, you added a level to that episode that I don't think they had done much in Scooby Doo at that point, just because it had to have some action,
Yeah.
It needed that, and I thought that you did a really good job of it. I also thought that it was interesting with that was the episode that we sent out for animation tests, and we saw such a wide range. It's just interesting to watch the same thing. You send them the same thing, and how varied people would come back with it. How much different, they like you would, you'd have them someone fall in a certain way, and they would kind of follow it, but they wouldn't hold it long enough, and it would jump, or some people would like spend too much time on the run or whatever. It just never really got, it didn't always end up what we got, and what we finally got was really pretty awesome, actually. Even the animation was nice.
Yeah, when you're in it, you're just in the whole, it seems like it's one, you're trying to do so much material and it's frustrating. You're trying to pull it all up and make it all consistent. And then you get a little distance from it and you're like, it turned out really well. But what Mike was referring to, which I don't know how much you're familiar with, is when there are a lot of subcontracting studios, and we usually pick a test or a 30-second piece of an episode with a little bit of acting, a little bit of action. And then we send it to many studios, the same storyboard, whatever, the same designs, all the same information, with, if we do sheets or something like that, timing sheets. And then we get those back, and that informs our decision of who to choose to go forward with. And you can tell some people kind of get what we're going for, and some people don't.
It was interesting to see that process. Definitely such a good show, and such a good team was assembled along the background of that. And I suppose going further into that, of course, we've had you on the show previously, Chris, but because this is your first time on the show, Mike, in terms of introducing you a bit more to the audience, what made you go down the route of, getting into animation, and what was it like on the first initial build-up to go to work on Scooby Doo and Guess Who?
How did I want to say that I was never really good at anything else. Art is just kind of one of the few things that I can do well. So I've always kind of liked to draw, and I was always that weird kid in class making everybody laugh and drawing funny pictures. So, it was kind of a natural for me. However, I wasn't planning on doing that. I was planning on taking over my father's business. My father was a chef, and he owned a industrial catering company. So they did cafeterias and concessions at big companies and whatnot. I ended up hauling trash after high school for a couple of years, which sucks, and I don't recommend, in case you guys aren't familiar. But then I was literally on the back of the truck outside. It's about 30 degrees out, sleeting, pouring rain, miserable. My beard is all frozen. And I just realized I needed to do something else with my life, and instantly thought, well, art, because it was the only thing that I really kind of knew how to do. And I had some other, as far as Scooby, I've had some other encounters with Scooby. I worked on 3 or 4 earlier Scooby iterations. Like, I don't know, I worked on a bunch of those, and then I worked on a series. I boarded a couple of episodes of another iteration of Scooby that I don't remember what it was called, but they tried to make it more like the Gorillas. You know, the music videos that they did with the Gorillas, like that was the inspiration. They have like those dot eyes like they do in those videos, and they were, the producer was really kind of pushing angles and making sure that it was a little over the top. But I don't know. And then, you know, I just working on Scooby's always been fun. I know that you're going to get some awesome boo scares, which is a certain type of, you know, shots, which is fun. And then sometimes, you know, you just get a really good comedy scene, which is fun too. Remember one episode we did with, I think it was Axl Rose. Correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but we did this one episode where it had something to do with pizza pies. And we got to do this whole sequence that was similar to Bugs Bunny that he did back in the 40s with pies and Humphrey Bogart. And Humphrey Bogart's like upset or something, and he's, you know, and he comes in and he's like, I need a pie. And, you know, Bugs Bunny's like, yeah, good, here's a pie, you know, and he's like, all right, make a pie. Pie's up, sir. And he pushes the pie right into Humphrey Bogart's face, and he does it like 6 or 7 times to him. And I know Chris had the idea, we should do that. Let's do that. So it was
yeah, we just did it straight. It was a straight homage.
Yeah. It was
like, just, I said, Mike, you're doing it. Just rip it off. Just use it. You know, everyone, people know it. You know, oh my God, they're doing the Bugs Bunny thing. And then if they don't know it, it stands on its own. But it wasn't Axl Rose. That was, I'm blanking on the name.
Joey Chestnut?
No. It was, shoot.
The pie, was that the clown episode, the Kenan Thompson?
Nope. I'll come up with it in a second.
I don't remember who it was. I'm sure I've got the storyboard somewhere, but I don't think I can find it that quickly. But I guess it doesn't necessarily matter.
There's a couple. There's a couple of different stars that are going back and forth in my head. No, it was one of the female stars.
Oh, was it? Oh, you know who? You know, no.
Was it?
No, it wasn't Cher. We had the frogman. Cher.
You know who it was? I think it was Lucy Liu.
Lucy Liu. That's right. That's exactly right. Because it was her artist. It was her sculpture that came to life.
That's what made me think of it.
Well
because
done.
we did that weird sculpture creature.
Yeah.
That was cool. Yeah.
Oh, that's
There
incredible.
you go. So now you know.
Yeah, no, it's lovely to hear the inspirations behind all of those things, because all the homages, it really brings the show to life when you get that backstory about why stuff like that is implemented. And so, out of curiosity, in terms of like the general production of the show, to what extent did the two of you work together?
I'm sure what you mean. What do you mean production?
Like, did you ever, like, to what extent did you have to collaborate with a given episode or the overall show? Was it almost like a writer's room setup where you're in the same office?
We collaborated a lot. There was a lot of collaboration between me and Chris. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially in well, I mean, you know, the first thing that happens is we hand out a script. We'd all sit in the room. It would be me and Chris and the storyboard artist, and we'd all just do a read through of the whole episode, and then we'd talk about ideas and thoughts and notes and end up drawing a lot of stuff on Post-its, and then I'd pack it all up and we'd start the storyboard, and then I would check in with them, and they'd pitch me little parts of it, and then once we had a working idea, we would pitch it to Chris, and he would give notes, and Mike Ryan would give notes, and at that stage, I think we'd still do it. You know, we'd do the notes, and then we'd get one more pass, and we would show it to Jay Bastian, and he would give us notes. But then once we had all that stuff figured out, we'd sit in the edit bay and just kind of hammer it out, because every one of these episodes were, you know, 3-4 minutes longer than they were supposed to be. So we had to cut out some choice content and make, you know, specific choices to, you know, shave off bits that we kind of wanted. So there was a lot of collaboration. I think, at least I remember it, on with Chris and I just going back and forth on my episodes. So
I must ask, with the way you approached it, did you ever feel any kind of, I don't know, additional pressures that Scooby Doo was such kind of a pre-existing thing? And obviously, you know, Guess Who's a brilliant, you know, scene in recalling some of that kind of original looks and that sort of thing as well.
I don't know about pressure. I mean, I think it was more, there was pressure, I think, to make it good. I mean, I think that, you know, because, you know, there's the schedules are so tight, and when you get a good board and you get a good show back, it's like glorious, because there's not a lot of time for anyone or the studio to come in and mess with it too much. But if it comes back and it has issues, man, you're just like redrawing stuff and trying to come up with creative edits, you know, to help smooth over some rough spots. But I think that's where the pressure is. But not really. We were just trying to entertain, or for myself, I'll speak for myself. I just wanted to entertain my, you know, my 8-year-old self, or that watched Scooby as a kid. That was kind of it. I didn't want to disappoint myself.
I don't know, for me, I kind of felt like we had a home run, really, because what Chris always said was that we want to make an episode as though we just found like lost episodes, you know, like it should feel like Scooby. It should have that feel and that tone. And watching the animatics, you know, I tend to go a little overboard with the animatics that I did. I put as much music and sound effects and everything in it to really give a sense of the film, because I wanted to see, well, does it play? Does it feel like it is? Because you never really know. I mean, you know, it was that little creeping stuff. You can get a lot of humor out of that. But do we want that long, you know, like 3 seconds of him doing it, or we want 7 seconds? Do we have 7 seconds? Maybe it's funny. Maybe something can happen while he's doing that. So I don't, you know, it was, I don't know. I always kind of felt that we were doing it right after watching all of the animatics, because Chris would play them for us and we'd get to watch them anyway as a crew. And you could tell right away if anything was good, because people would laugh, you know, room of 40 people, and they all worked on it. So nobody's giving you like the, you know, the courtesy laugh, really. If it wasn't playing, it was dead in the room. So it was, you know, it was kind of nice to see the camaraderie and everybody working together to make this special thing. And then it was even cooler because we had all the celebrities. And that was cool too, because we're all fans of all these celebrities. So that was kind of fun to, like, when you started hearing their voices and how they were acting and their little funny bits that they would do. And did that play? Did it not play? Sometimes it didn't, but you know, often it did. And there was a lot of, I don't know. For me, I always kind of felt that we were making something special.
And it's lovely to hear about that collaboration as well, because I think quite often now, when you think about kind of animation and things like that, you think about people kind of working via Zoom and communicating that way, or recording from home. But it certainly sounds like there was a lot of really nice moments, and certainly, you know, a really nice collaborative environment. Was there anybody in particular that you were kind of excited to be working with, or kind of on the Scooby front, any characters that you particularly enjoyed kind of, you know, making stories for, writing for?
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Well, for me, the number one there was a couple. Ricky Gervais, I got to direct that episode, and I really enjoyed that, just being a part of that. And Axl Rose, just because I'm a big fan of Guns N' Roses, that was.
Well, you pitched Axl Rose as a guest star.
Yeah.
I can't believe we got him.
I know, I was surprised too. You know what it was? It was because he had been in an episode of Looney Tunes or Wabbit or whatever, and he even sang a song in it. And I was like, oh, he's got him. Jay already knows him. They've got to do it.
Yeah.
So, that's why I even bothered to pitch it. But I've always been a huge fan of Guns N' Roses and Axl Rose. Not necessarily his lifestyle, but I love his singing.
He made us record, or he didn't make us. His request was that we record at night. I guess he's a night owl. So Mike Ryan and I went to the recording studio, I think like at 9 or something like that. And we recorded 9 to 11. And we were like, whose idea was this? Jeez. And one funny anecdote with Axl, and he came and he brought a few people with him. I can't remember who they were exactly, but he introduced us all. And usually with the actors, I say, well, do you want me to read with you or not read with you? And if I read with you, do you want me to do the voices? Because some actors find it distracting if I'm trying to do the voices, and other people are like, yeah, sure. Well, I forgot to ask him that. I just asked him if he wanted me to read with him, and he's like, oh yeah, sure. So he's in the booth and I'm out in the recording area with the technician. And so he reads 3 or 4 lines, and then I come in and I just do some goofy Scooby line. And my Scooby stinks, by the way, but I can't even remember what the line was, but I was like, he busted up laughing. He laughed for like 45 seconds straight. He goes, no idea that was coming. It was probably too. But he had a really good, he was game for pretty much, anything we were doing.
I always liked your Scooby voice. I remember, because I do it a lot of the stuff too, Scooby and Shaggy, and I can remember Dave Corder, our editor. Sometimes we'd go through almost ready to, ship the thing out to be animated, and I'd be like, dude, that's my voice there. But no, that's still Chris there. I remember him doing that voice. It made us laugh. Yeah. And so so your voice wasn't that bad because it fooled all of us sometimes.
Well, I think I had the cadence pretty well. There was a scene in the Whoopi Goldberg episode that Mike and I completely, Mike Ryan and I believe, completely rewrote in editorial, and I recorded all the voices like I was pitching the storyboard. So I switched up everybody's cadence or intonation just ever so slightly to sell it. And I was really proud because when we got the gang to come back in and ADR it, they nailed it, or I nailed it. They were able to just jump right into that rhythm, and it sounded like them. Or sometimes, if you guys can imagine, if we have to rewrite a line and it's one of us doing scratch and we don't act it correctly or with the proper rhythm, they really, it really puts the actors, through their paces to match our intonation, and they do it, and they're great. But it's like, when they struggle with it, it's like, we screwed up, Yeah.
You really have to make an ass out of yourself, really, in order to sell that idea. You have to be silly. You have to, just do all the voices and add as much energy as you can. And sometimes it's fun. Like sometimes we've done scratch, and everybody's laughing at the line that I just did, or that Chris just did, and we're like, we know that's good because they'll definitely sell that line, because it was funny just with us doing it. Imagine what it's going to be like if the real people do it. So, yeah, that was always a lot of fun to watch it being put together, and I always felt honored that at some places I could put words in these famous people's mouths. And I don't mean like Axl Rose. I mean like Scooby and Shaggy and all that, like these classic characters. And there are words and sentences, sometimes whole paragraphs that I wrote, that I said that we should do just as a test. And there it is. There's the voice. That's actually doing it. The real guy's doing it. I don't know. It was Frank up there doing my voice. That's fun.
It sounds like an absolute dream, to just see from concept stage to it materialize into the program that went out. It's just absolutely incredible. And I'm curious to know, because you both have quite a lot of good stories about interacting with the voice cast and the celebrity cameos and all of that. Was it typical in terms of this show for you all to interact with the cast while directing, or was there ever a moment where a voice director was brought in, or were you pretty much doing all of that process in the, in the stage of director?
Well, as supervising director, I guess my title was producer, but it's it's the same job I had on Kim Possible, where I was supervising director. I directed the voices. If they were singing, I kind of handed it over to Mike Ryan. He has a better handle on that since he wrote the lyrics to the songs. But no, we didn't use a voice director. I think
cool.
Partially, I think a lot of people do that in TV. But I came from feature animation, Disney feature animation, where if you're directing a project, you direct the actor. So like when I came to TV on Clerks and Kim Possible, at first they're like, oh yeah, and we have a voice director. And it's like, oh, no, I can do that. We don't need that. So I've just always done it.
I think that if you're an actual director and can write and draw and you're putting together a film, I think you're probably better at doing the voice acting because you know it better. Even voice actors do what they do and they have like a little rapport with the actors. So you'll say, all right, well, he's saying it too loud and he's doing this and he's doing that. And then they'll shorten it with like this little button of like words. It's like, I don't know, some language between the voice actor and the actor themselves. And that's supposed to get them to understand it more. But if you're articulate and can say what you want because you know what you want, then how difficult could it be?
Yeah, exactly. Also, what's kind of fun, with Frank especially, and I'm going to jump back a little bit to what you were saying earlier. There were times, and I've worked with Frank before when I was at Disney on projects, but it was great to work with him on Scooby, where it was funny. I was more sort of not starstruck. That's not the right word because he's very accessible, and it's not like I was tongue-tied or didn't know what to say or anything. But directing him or listening to him, thinking, man, I was like sitting in front of the TV as a little boy watching him when he was like 24 doing this thing, and now he's like right there.
Yeah.
And he's still doing the same thing for me.
They're the same voice, the same character.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Well, because he did so many of the other, shows for Hanna-Barbera and for everybody. So, but
truly iconic, and still doing it to this day, which is absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible as well. And out of curiosity, was there a specific rhyme and reason as to who would be assigned to direct a particular episode, or was it almost just at random as such?
It was a rotation. And sometimes people were penciled in for an episode that we thought might be more, Mike Ryan and I thought would be more, attuned to a particular director. But, it had to do with celebrity availability for records. Many times, like, Mike would come up with sort of the generic, like, sports outline. And it didn't matter what the sport was, because the story would be the story. But the specifics would change depending on if we got a golfer, or if we got a baseball player or a football player. Then it's like, oh, okay, we're going to tweak it this way now. But we were always waiting for the celebrity to say yes. I swear, we didn't think Cher was going to happen. We were getting too close to the deadline where we were going to have to pull the trigger on another episode, and all of a sudden we got the word, and we just pulled it all together. And I think within like a day, oh yeah, we're recording tomorrow. It felt like that.
Yeah. Well, we did that whole episode. The Chris Paul episode, it was all done with Shaquille O'Neal originally, but we couldn't get him.
Oh, that's right.
And then it all had to be redone again with it. And because Shaquille O'Neal is so much taller, it all had to be reboarded because the shots didn't fit the same way because he was so much bigger and you couldn't. So there was a lot of retooling after that. But that was after it had already been completely storyboarded. And then had to be completely retooled.
I purged that one from my mind. It was way too much work.
It was a lot of work. Anyway. Yeah,
It's really interesting to hear this though, because I think quite often, I think once you see the finished product, we enjoy it, but we don't fully realize like the time constraints and things like that, and how time sensitive it was. Of if you can't get the guest, then there isn't time to wait. The episode has to go. We need somebody else.
Yeah.
So I guess kind of while we're on the topic of guests, is there any guests in particular that you really enjoyed having on the show? Any that you perhaps really either enjoyed because you got to write for them, because you were familiar with them already, or just some interaction that had happened kind of in recording?
Go ahead, Mike.
I think one of my favorite episodes was actually an odd one, and you wouldn't expect it, but it was the Christian Slater episode that I directed. And what I liked about that was that it was a whole musical. And so, and after listening,
neither did we.
He was a great singer, but he could sing. And then everybody, like the whole crew, or not the crew, but the whole gang had to sing, and they all had little songs that, I don't know, it was really sweet. There was one about Velma losing her glasses that she sings, so it was like all these iconic stuff that,
that song was beautiful in the diner.
Yeah.
I love that song.
Really well done. Yeah. It was a fun idea. And so, I mean, and Chris let us have a little more fun with the backgrounds. We made them, especially at the beginning, we tried to make them be a little more colorful, a little more
super impressionistic, and because we were doing a very stylized Broadway musical thing, and Mike and I who did you work with on some of those backgrounds in the background department designing?
That was what's her name?
Nadia. It was Nadia, right?
Yeah, it was Nadia. Yeah.
Those were wonderful.
No, it was Marta. No, Nadia.
Was it Marta?
It was Marta.
Oh,
we went back and forth with all those. And if you remember originally in that sequence, there's the whole opening sequence, and it starts right as a song, and they're driving down the street and everything. And I had originally had this idea that it would be cool to paint them in different colors. So so we would do two versions of the background, and one would have like pink accents and the other one would have blue accents or whatever. And the hope was to kind of cross dissolve them between it to make it even more fun and unique for that particular sequence. And so Marta had to do 4 paintings for each key background that we did or overseas in order to make them all work so that we could cross dissolve between them. And it ended up not really working so well, and we ended up just using one of them. So she did like 3 times the backgrounds that she needed to do for the sequence.
No, well, that's funny you say that, because I remember like you guys showed me a test and being blown away by it. And there is that shifting. It was a very stylized way of getting across like the shifting lights of the city.
Yeah. We did a lot
I think
of that.
that worked really. So there was probably stuff thrown away, like you're saying. That was
you didn't know about it, so that was why didn't
no, I didn't know about that. I only saw with the finished result.
Yeah.
One funny thing, that story came about. Mike Ryan and I were at a recording session, and we went to lunch, and we were talking about what to do for the final episode of season 1. And I said, "What do you think about doing an opera? Can we do an opera where like they just sing for the whole episode?" And where the guest star turns out to be the villain. And it started from that. And I think somehow we got onto the idea of doing a werewolf. And then Mike sort of just took it from there and created the whole episode. The interesting thing is that Frank as Fred doesn't sing. He can't sing. He doesn't want to sing. And Scooby, he can kind of sing. So you'll notice that in Fred's musical sequence, it was mostly the girls, singing backup for his song, Man Called Fred.
But also you were saying that Frank can sing. He just can't sing as Scooby, which is kind of funny.
Or sing as Fred.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. He can't sing as Fred, but he can sing apparently. Like I've heard him sing in other episodes, but I guess when you've got like 700 voices in your head, some characters can't sing. some
Oh,
can't.
and he was game for it for sure, but it was like you couldn't
not
get
very
like
good.
yeah,
And he
you
sang
didn't
a whole
want to get
song,
anything
too.
like Velma.
He sang a whole song to it called "I'm a Trapping Man," and it was all about like the Rube Goldberg trapping devices he was trying to catch the Christian Slater as the vampire in it. I'm sorry, the werewolf, and Christian Slater was singing the whole time, and everybody was singing, and including Fred, but it was all about Fred's Rube Goldberg sort of contraptions he had to pull on, and that was a fun episode just because we all got to, I don't know, act out acting and dancing and music, and it kind of set itself apart from the others, which was fun.
It certainly sounds like there's so many fun memories that you've been able to take away from this, and that, you know, in contrast to what does sound like it could have been quite stressful with lining up the guests and everything. Can I ask, in regards to that turnaround process from we've got this idea, now we need to kind of make this idea fit a guest, we need to try and get the guest, get into production, all that sort of thing. What was the kind of time turnaround like for that?
Well, it just varied depending on if they, you know, how quickly they said yes. They had approval of their initial character design. So as soon as, you know, we were going out to somebody, we would do sometimes we would do a character design even before they said yes, you know, if we had the time. But I think the shows are moving forward. And if we didn't have a guest star, we would just start boarding the show story-wise with blocking. You know, there was a fun sort of behind-the-scenes story. I mean, there's one with every guest star actually, but for the Weird Al episode, we had Weird Al come into the studio, and then Vince, who was our producer at the time, he was told by the studio that Weird Al can't sing. And we're like, wait, what? You know, that's why we have Weird Al here. And then Vince said, I am sorry, they told me that, you know, because we don't have a Warner Brothers doesn't have a recording deal with you, you can't sing. They forbid me to let you sing. And he says, I guarantee you there is no way this will blow back at you. There is no way that my side will come back at Warner Brothers and say, hey, you don't have the rights for this. And they went back and forth several times. And I'm like in the middle, like, if he doesn't sing the episode, it's like, it doesn't work because songs were written. And Vince had to make that executive decision because he couldn't get a hold of the studio to plead the case. And this took some guts, but he was like, go ahead, sing. Yeah, just do it. And then of course, Weird Al was great and it all worked out just fine. But Al was fantastic because he knew why he was there, and he knew exactly what to do with these songs. And then artistically he took it to the next level. He took Mike's lyrics and he actually started changing them up, and he recorded one as more of a country thing and one more as a whatever. And Mike didn't expect that. So he was super creative with it, and he really went to bat, you know, for the episode and reassured our producer, and it turned out to be one of our better episodes.
Yeah, it's amazing hearing about the guests as well, especially in instances as well where some of them were designed before the guest would even say yes. It just seems like everything was quite a well-oiled machine. And we recently did a little deep dive.
No,
it was not well-oiled.
It was more like the Arc de Triomphe, where everybody's just going around in circles, barely avoiding a collision.
I mean, we did recently do a deep dive on the character designs, especially as it was with the guests, by interviewing Steven Silver, I think about a month ago now. And so one of those curiosities that we uncovered with him was that there were some designs for the Kiss rock and roll band that weren't used. Was this one of those instances where it was designed before they said yes, or do you know why that episode never went through?
Oh yeah, there was some kind of behind the scenes thing that happened. They said, "Hey, guess what? We're not going to be going forward with Kiss. What can we do with the episode?" And then I think Mike Ryan pitched, you know, replacing them with the Hex Girls. But
Ooh.
but that was it. I mean, the designs were kind of would have been. I remember them. They were straightforward, solid, Scooby designs of Kiss. It's pretty straight, pretty direct.
And talking about what you were saying before about whether or not, you cast the directors to do the episodes, I was originally slated on the list to do the Kiss episode, and I was excited because I'm a big fan of Kiss. And then, like Chris said, something happened and they got pulled out. And then because of that, now it had to be rewritten, and so I lost my place.
That's right. That's right. Frank did it.
Yeah,
Frank ended up finishing it
doing the
off.
Hex Girl, which is perfect for him anyway, because he likes all that witchy kind of stuff. So that was cool. But
Yeah.
but that's really sad that I didn't get to do Kiss. But oh well, got to do other ones.
I mean, it is a shame that you didn't get to work with Kiss, but I must say, as massive Hex Girl fans, that we were very excited to hear about them. So I guess it kind of works both ways. I mean, I another question that we kind of had was in regards to, obviously series 1, fantastic, then leading into another great series with series 2. Did the approach change at all about how you went about things? Was it perhaps that you'd, I don't know, defined what it is you wanted to do with series 1, so you were a lot more kind of ready to go into series 2, or?
I think the crew knew what the show was. I don't think I varied a whole lot. I really wanted it to look like the original show with, 3 or 5 panel, pans, bicycle pans, relatively flat staging on the gang, but maybe up angles on the monsters when you show them, things like that. So, because everyone was coming from different places, it seemed like I was more involved with that in the beginning, just reminding people, because some board artists would come from an action background and everything would be this canted angle or some crazy foreshortening thing, into camera. And it's like, no, it's like it's 3-camera sitcom when you're on the gang. And when they look over their shoulders, it's like, then you can do the up angle on the monster, chasing them or something spooky like that. But I think that's, from my recollection, that's the kind of thing that was easier. I got to be a little less involved with that aspect of it.
As I remember it, we did change it a little bit. It started out a little more, I think, traditional animated show. And over time, Chris started to really hammer in the proscenium, left and right, only left and right, because in some cases, we even tried 3/4 things, like characters walking 3/4. And either Chris didn't have the time to say, no, don't do it, or we didn't have time to fix it, or whatever. By the time it came back, it was very clear why left to right walking was good, because 3/4 walking is much harder to do. The perspective is harder, the feet placement without sliding is more difficult, and just staying on model is more difficult. Whereas, a walk side left to right, it's just a cycle of the character walking and it stays on model. And as I remember, that was one of the biggest challenges that we had on the show, was after stuff coming back, just that they were off model. They just didn't draw them well enough. And so there was a lot of fixes on that end, as I remember it. Just only in the beginning, but once it was kind of figured out to do the drawovers and how to do it and everything, it kind of all fell into place. And I think the second season looked better because it was more, it was more cohesive, because you had found your sweet spot of what was working and what wasn't working, and how to bulletproof stuff. You use that word a lot on the show. We got to bulletproof it, so when it comes back, it works. I remember the bulletproof comment.
Well, there's things you can do, and unfortunately, I learned by experience on a lot of this stuff, like all of us do. But you can design a background with lots of foreground and background elements and various levels of depth and lighting, and the characters are still walking left to right, and it will look like incredibly dimensional and not flat, like you're watching a stage play or a Yogi Bear cartoon. Also, just by stacking the characters in depth or jumping them out. And they did this a lot in the original show. They'd exit this way, then they'd come back in way close to camera. You know, you can play with the foreground background that way. You don't have to animate the characters changing in perspective within the shot, because that's the hard part, and that's where a lesser animator is going to fall down. And when those original animators were doing Scooby, and a lot of them were, you know, great animators from the, you know, Hollywood heyday of the 40s and 50s, they just knew that was harder. So they'd have, that's why Shaggy would skate out of frame, and then you do the crash, and then you'd cut to them in the funny pose, and then you cut to Fred and Velma or Daphne, and then they would enter the shot. You know, it's just, so you didn't have to work on all that hard stuff. So that was the kind of thing that I kept, you know, trying to go for. One is, while it was created in terms of economy, it became style for Scooby. And so I just wanted to embrace that.
It certainly turned out. Oh, sorry.
No, I was going to say, I think we achieved that because that was one of the most common comments I got from people, was like, it looks just like the old ones. And I was like, have you watched the old ones? It doesn't really look like the old ones.
Yeah. It feels like the old ones. It's actually drawn quite a bit better, which I'm happy to say, or some of it. Much of it.
And we also did we did a lot of the boo scares, and we made sure that they were the right angles, the same way. And we also did the romp, which was a lot of fun, and it gave us a lot of chances to have fun and whatnot. And, you know, the romp is that typical thing where you're in a hallway and they go back and forth, and, you know, Shaggy and Scooby are being chased by the monster, and then they're being chased by the monster, and now the monster is being chased by them. And, you know, or they did you have a favorite one of those? I think my favorite one was the Mark Hamill one, actually, because that had it had the fox monster in it that kind of looked like Pokemon, if you remember. And they went to Japan, and there was just, that one I don't know, it was a lot of fun, and there was a lot of gags in it. And you know, they had like a rickshaw, and everybody's chasing everybody, and it was funny too, because the fox monster was, you know, like 4 feet taller. He was big and like Totoro, you know, and going through the walls. And so we had to, like, they burst through the doors and breaking everything up. And I don't know, it was a lot of fun. There was a lot of slapstick in that particular one that I remember fondly. But I loved all those. That was my favorite part of the episodes, with the romp, just because it was so intricate and so detailed. Like the one from Christian Slater, they were singing, I think, during it also. So, you know, the romps are like fast-paced kind of things, you know? They just run through back and forth, and then you're seeing a sight gag. But that particular one was fun. And also the one of the things that I liked that departed from the other ones was Mark Hamill. At some point, the fox monster actually pulls out like a taiko drum. Or no, it's Scooby. Scooby actually pulls out this big taiko drum, and he's like boom, 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 doing it with the music. And the monster's chasing back and forth, and eventually you realize that he's alone, and everybody's gone, and there's still Scooby in the background. Boom, boom, boom. And he goes running down towards Scooby, and he's like, oh! You know, it was a very funny sequence. It made me laugh out loud, and it made everybody laugh when we pitched it as a
Well, I think Scooby being an active participant in that way was sort of a break from the traditional romp.
Yeah, and well, it just made it just so ludicrous. It was already ridiculous, but now it's gotten ludicrous in the sense that, where did he get the drum? Why did he pull it in there? And why does he think that he needs to play stuff when he's about to die? I don't know. But it was typical Scooby logic, and that I always appreciated that. Mm-hmm. I don't know, it was fun, and that's what I loved about the show, is that Chris gave us the freedom in a lot of ways to, like, anything that was funny, like, anything I pitched funny, Chris was okay with, pretty much across the board. Anything I thought that we could do as a gag, and you know, Chris and Mike Ryan both, because we wanted it to be funny. So anyway, we could add any of that slapstick in there. That's what I like the best. So, you know, I got a lot of opportunity to do that, I'm happy to say, and thankful that Chris let me have as much creativity as I did on the show.
I mean, like you were saying, reflecting on the episodes, that each one of them has some amazing and hilarious moments. Is there a particular episode, or perhaps couple of episodes, be it from series 1 or series 2, that stand out to you as your overall favorite once you got to see the finished product?
Yeah, I think there were, I think the 2 season finales actually, and you always want to make a season finale special for sure, but that doesn't mean they're going to end up being your favorite. So the Christian Slater one I just loved, and it was really, we had a little wrap party and we invited the actors to come, and most of them were able to make it. And I remember watching it with them, just being really proud of it because they were great, the show was great. And then the season 2 finale was where we brought all the classic villains back, where, you know, Frank hosted everyone to his house for a recording session. And that was fun to do because it was all the characters I grew up with. But then when we were cutting it together, and this was Mike's intent all along, but I don't know if it's because, you know, I'm just the hardened soul or something, because I always liked it, but I didn't realize it was such a love letter to Frank. It was all about Frank and his history with the gang. And you know, I knew it when we came in, but somehow I didn't really feel it till I was in the edit bay. And it was like, wow, this is really great. And I think that show actually looks amazing too. Frank directed that one, I believe. And
Yeah, he
just did a fantastic job. It looked great, excellent direction. And then again, one of my favorite stories. But it's kind of, it is kind of hard because, you know, as I say that, then I go, but then there's Terry Bradshaw, who came in like a force of nature and jumped right in. And that was a brilliant episode. And that had a really terrific romp as well. And then, you know, the Whoopi Goldberg episode was really horror-like, and we had a great villain, and she was just wonderful to work with. So yeah, it's hard. I mean, I'll just start going through and just naming all the episodes, but I would say if I had to pick 2, it would probably be those 2, you know, if I had to show somebody.
Me. You know what? I really, I directed the Joey Chestnut episode, and honestly, I'll be honest, I had no idea who he was. And then everybody was like, "Oh, well, he's the hot dog guy," and you know, and he eats all the hot dogs. And I was like, "Oh, okay, that's cool." And I ended up really enjoying that episode because there was a cool monster in it, and it was fun to draw that monster. It was like a tree monster, and he kind of walked on his legs because he didn't have, you know, feet or anything, because they were just vines. And so I really enjoyed that. And just Joey Chestnut was, I mean, he's obviously not an actor, but I don't know, the way Mike Ryan wrote stuff, it just kind of played well, and he played well off the other characters, especially Shaggy and Scooby, and he kind of became one of them. And I don't know, that particular episode was a lot of fun for me. And it was all
Mike recorded him for that one. I had some kind of conflict, and I remember like poking my head in to say hi, and then I had to duck out, and I was very happy with how that turned out.
Yeah, that one came out really good.
Do you know, there was something else that was kind of funny. You were talking about in the episode where Mark Hamill played himself, which he did several voices for us, and it was always, you know, just a real, you know, thrill to go back in the studio with him. Mm-hmm. And you know, he's such a pro and enjoyed doing it. The ending where he fakes out the monster, well, originally, I remember like getting a little more involved with the ending because it was a controversial, where I had him like doing the Luke Skywalker thing where he put his hand up, and he was a confrontation with the monster, and the monster was like, wait, what's happening? And then you cut to the wind chimes blowing and leaves blowing and just traditional stuff. And the monster, it psyched the monster where he thought he was using Jedi powers, and it allowed him to win the day. And the studio just said no. They felt like we'd pushed the whole satire thing way too far, and now we were actually doing Luke Skywalker. And I was like, no, he's not making the wind blow. He's not making any of this stuff happen. He's just faking out the monster. But I remember just having to cut a lot of that stuff. And I think our ending is still really good, but it was just a little bit better once.
I always liked that part at the end of that episode where, the entire episode, Shaggy and Scooby are trying to get Mark Hamill to sign things. And it goes from normal to more crazy and crazy, stacks and stacks of stuff. And finally, at the very end, Shaggy hands him this piece of paper. And he's, because Mark Hamill's just getting tired of them bugging him. So he's just signing things blindly. And they stand in this one piece of paper. And he's like, wait a minute, this is a check for $1 million. And they're like, which I don't know, that made me really funny. It's like, no, I won't do that.
Because they're so stupid. They're just, they're not stupid. They're just simple.
Yeah, innocent. Yeah. Yeah, it was that was a funny episode for that.
I called them knuckleheads in the just like in general story meetings and the Malcolm McDowell episode, I referred to them as knuckleheads to him. Yeah, and the knuckleheads do this. And it made him laugh for some reason. It must have been the way I delivered it or the scene or whatever. He was one that, it turned out, he just started really having fun with it about halfway through. And we got to the end. And he said, now that I feel like I really know what we're doing, can I do the opening again? I'm like, well, I think we got it, but if you'd like to do the open again, sure, we can do it again. And he did like the first 8 pages, like over. And he's like, is that okay? And I was like, yeah. So anyway.
That was a fun episode.
Sorry, another digression.
That was another fun episode too, about the time change. And they did it was kind of like, what was it? The Avengers, where everything went in slow motion and, right? Wasn't that? No, that was the Flash episode. But Malcolm McDowell was fun because they had,
time travel.
Yeah, it was time travel, and you ended up getting to see Shaggy and Scooby as badass futuristic warriors talking to each
originally,
other with voices. And it's fun.
Originally, Matt, he was very protective of Shaggy, and he didn't approve of the battle and the whole sci-fi aspect. And I remember in the recording session, just trying to reassure him that, no, it'll be okay. Don't worry about it. And he saw the finished bit and he loved it. He thought it was hilarious and was all in. So that was kind of gratifying.
That one was a good episode too, because Sean Bishop directed that, and he's just an amazing draftsman, and he drew every frame of Malcolm McDowell dead on. So the film looked really good. And who was that other woman? Another comedian. I can't think of her name. But he drew her dead on too, and the film really worked well as a result. I don't know. She's like a comedy actress. She's got curly hair, and I don't know. I don't remember. But
Wanda? Not Wanda.
No,
Wanda.
no. I directed that one. No. Can't think of her name. Was she in Parks and Rec or something? She's on some show called The Last Man on Earth, I think. And now, I can't think of her name, but anyway, it was a good episode because, I don't know, as artists, we like that eye candy of things really moving well and in space, and the more hints you can give to the overseas studios, the more likely that it's going to come back the way you like and really move in perspective. And Sean just did a wonderful job of making that happen. And I always appreciate that. And I like that episode because the studio just hit their groove on that one. And it was very funny too. So it's a good episode. A lot of fun.
There's a lot of good ones to choose from. I think the whole library of episodes are just so great to go back to. And there's a lot of things that you've discussed. I do think that Mark Hamill ending would have been absolutely amazing. Just so many things that you kind of wish maybe materialized. I mean, is there a particular thing or maybe a group of things that were discussed of or scrapped for seasons 1 and 2 that you'd want to incorporate the most if they ever came back and did a season 3 or anything like that?
Gosh, it's hard to remember. I mean, every episode it feels like it's this, you know, you're. I mean, I remember like at Disney they would refer to it as you're creating an animated movie. It's like the opposite of peeling an onion. You just keep layering it and molding it. And I don't remember things having to be cut that like it's like, oh gosh, that was such a great concept and there wasn't room. We could build a whole episode around that. I mean, there probably was, but nothing comes to mind.
I don't remember anything either that we were missing, other than I think I would have liked to, if we had gotten a third season or whatever, I think I would have liked to have seen some younger guest stars. You know, like we had a couple. There was even a YouTube influencer, I think.
Oh gosh,
He had Dodson in it.
Kosher.
Yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
God, she was
It's
wonderful. She was
Yeah.
like dynamite in a bottle, just in the
Yeah.
recording stage. Yeah.
I just would have liked to have seen a little bit more of that. And I would have liked to have seen maybe another musical in some way, or I don't know, rock opera or something. I don't know. It just would have been, it's just fun. I like the departures from stuff. And I know I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of like the characters and their backgrounds, because while we didn't really touch on that much, except for, you know, so-and-so is somebody's friend, like Daphne's friend in college or whatever, and that's how they knew each other. But it was just, I would have liked to have learn a little bit more about their histories and backstories and where they came from and stuff. But we knew that already from the previous Scooby Doo and Mystery Inc.
Mystery Inc. Do you know, I think I was the one that probably kept that out of the series.
Yeah, you were.
I was because everybody was all into that. I'm like, I don't care. I don't want to know. I don't want to know their middle names or their last names. I know they have them. I don't care. It's not, to me, that kind of thing. I know there's a like within comics and animation, there's like a fandom that loves all these aspects, but something about me, I don't know what it is. If I'm anti-continuity, or I'm like, well, is it entertaining all by itself? Just knowing someone's last name, or the professor on Gilligan's Island's last name is Hinckley. It's like, all right, and what does that get you? You know? But so blame me, Mike.
No, you're right. But it was, I don't know. I always like that kind of stuff. I like to hear about the backstory and where did that come from. And
well, in the original series, and I can't remember which episode it was, but Velma refers to Shaggy as a gymnast, and you're like, what? Who wrote that line? Did the writer even look at Shaggy or watch a previous episode?
Right.
He had to get in through a second story window or something. And Shaggy can do it. He's a gymnast. I'm like,
oh yeah, I do remember that. I do remember that episode. Yeah, who was that?
I don't know. It doesn't matter, but it was just like so wrong.
You know what? That was the Christian Slater episode, and it was. It was.
No, we didn't do it. No, it was. I'm talking about a classic Scooby.
Oh no, we did one where he was a gymnast.
We didn't call him a gymnast.
To the second floor. I thought.
No, but we didn't refer to him as a gymnast. I think that came about probably because of the original episode, but I'd have to watch it again. Look, I could be wrong. It could be that it was the original episode, and I said, hey, they said he was a gymnast in the original show. Yeah. It's bullshit and completely doesn't make any sense at all. But let's say it's canon, so let's do it again. I could see myself doing that. I don't fully recall, so you guys will have to fact check me.
Yeah. I also remember that because we were really trying to do a faithful Scooby, there was some times where the animation was just so bad in one place or another, and I wanted to duplicate that. I just like Easter egg stuff. That would have been fun. Like there's one episode where Shaggy, I think I think Fred is talking to Velma, and you see the back of his head. He's like a 3/4 back view, and we see Velma. And then off screen, like Daphne talks to him, and he turns his head like a 180. Just completely doesn't turn his shoulders, doesn't turn anything. He just literally turns his head like you know, that horror movie. What's its face? And I just cracked me up that they were so lazy they didn't even turn the body around. And nobody cared. No, I never noticed.
So you did one of those in one of your episodes?
Yes, they did.
That's
yes,
awesome.
Yeah. I love that kind of stuff. Just the old things are funny. It would have been fun to play with the concept of the limited animation, you know, like, but it's so
well, if
hard.
there was more time, we definitely had ideas to do it, play more jokes of the non-painted props and the painted props and all that.
Or,
but
you know,
we didn't really follow through on it the way I'd hoped.
Chair, table. That was always fun.
Yeah.
We never really had them stop and go, why is there a chair and table? There's 700 of them. And see all the chairs and tables. I don't know. That's fun. But
what else you got? We're like just filling up all your time. When you probably got a whole list of questions we haven't even gotten to, because we just like get on a roll and just keep going.
Yeah, no, that was actually the last one on our list. I mean, it's been so fun catching up on all things Scooby, and I guess kind of the last question actually was kind of looking towards the future a little bit more, just if you've got any upcoming projects that you can share or would like to talk about, and where the best place is to keep up with your work.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. I've been working on this wonderful show at Nickelodeon called Max and the Midnights that hasn't come out yet. And so I'm on Christmas break right now, and I'm looking to go back to that in January. But I've got a personal project that I've had for like decades. I've done a 3D short film, I've done comic books, and I've had these shorts that have sat on my computer for years. And Mike and I are collaborating. Mike is voicing one of the star characters in it. And it's called Major Damage. And he plays a character called General Strike. And it's about a monster fighting superhero and two military characters who use this little kid superhero to do their heavy lifting and fight the monsters and do their job for them. And anyway, you can find that on my website. Damagefilms.com has a link. And also I have a YouTube channel that I've posted a few animation updates. But it's really great working with Mike as voice talent. Voice talent and story consultant.
Yeah, I'm well, he needed a raspy voice. That's kind of one of the few things I do is have a voice.
And Charlie Schlatter, who did our Flash, he's voicing the superhero. And then there's another wonderful actress that I found, Sashi, who's doing the Japanese loan officer. So, but yeah, take a look at that stuff. It's great. You can see Mike and I together again.
Yeah, just like the old days. It's awesome.
That's absolutely incredible. I'll be sure to leave all of that linked in the description down below. It just sounds absolutely amazing. So, yeah, like Milly was saying, that does wrap us up in terms of questions for the day. Just
excellent.
Thank you both so much for coming on and talking. And it's just been amazing to hear both of your stories about Scooby Doo and Guess Who. So thank you so much.
Oh, yeah. Thanks. Well, thanks for having us on. It's been fun.
Yeah, thanks.
That's incredible. And thank you so much to everyone for watching this. If you do want to see more, then please like, comment, and subscribe. And we'll see you next time.